Draft, stash, or pass. A new game for the Ringers NBA draft show this week where we kind of go through 3 prospects, stack them up against each other, and nobody better to do it than you, John.
Let's play the game. I'm here for that. I think this draft class has a bunch of those types of candidates, which is why this game is perfect for this draft, because you could have somebody that ends up a heck of a lot better at, say, 27, 28 than who gets picked at 12 or 13. That's the reality of this class. It is blurry. I do think that there are some real gems that are also undervalued in general, that can be the type of guy that a Jaime Jaquez was for the Miami Heat this past year. I think that those types of players exist in this class. I really do.
It's interesting that the draft is like this, whereas college basketball was very clearly UConn and Purdue as the best teams in college basketball, but the players coming out of the draft, it's like flat. Like you don't know what to expect at 1, at 10, at 20, at 30. It could be anybody.
You're so right. And I also think it's interesting that within those UConn and Purdue runs, you had players who, because of the we're going to get the answers to, okay, their level of domination, their level of winning allowed certain players to increase their stocks. Were those stocks inflated by all they did right? I don't think so for the majority of them. Or what was it dead on? You know, like Donovan Clingan has helped himself tremendously in the last year. What will he be when he steps on an NBA court? What's he going to look like when teams play off of him? Can he prove to make shots? Can he prove to make a shot? So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. I think, within that UConn run, Kevin, it is really remarkable to see how much Steph Castle got better as the year went on the offensive end of the floor. That was a real takeaway from watching their run to a title.
Well, let's start off with something involving Stephon Castle. And just to be clear for the listeners, if you draft the player, that's the player that you want the most. That's the player that you believe will contribute to your team. If you stash the player, that's the guy you might like, you might not like, but you're maybe betting on him down the line. That's the draft is marry, stash is fuck, and then pass is kill. That's the player you're like, I'm good on him compared to the other 2 players in this game. So let's start out with 3 lottery guards, including Stephon Castle from UConn, Reed Sheppard, and Rob Dillingham, 2 guard teammates with Kentucky. So Stephon Castle, Rob Dillingham, and Reed Sheppard. This might be the toughest one I have because they're all going to be drafted in the lottery.
Yeah, man, that is really tough. I'm going to draft Stephon Castle because I just see such a well-rounded ability on both ends of the floor. From the time I met this kid last year, the way that he talked about being a defender was not normal for a 17 or 18, 19-year-old kid. It's just not something that you hear the first words out of somebody's mouth who's coming in as a 5-star. And he just got it, Kevin. He is mature beyond his years. He talked about using this year to become a pro. He wanted to leave his mark. He knows that's hard in 1 year at the college level. He did it. He did it all. Physically, the physical attributes of Castle are terrific. To be this jumbo-sized guard who just makes a lot of things that are complicated look easy. Can guard multiple positions. And I think he's a guy who embraces contact as a driver. He can finish through contact. The shot, look, does it need to evolve? Yes, but there were stretches where he would ignite and would never look back in a game where shot was on.
He made almost 90% of his free throws second half of the season. Like the free throw percentage got better at the end of the season too.
Yep, and the biggest thing is effort. Effort is never going to be an issue with this kid. So I'm drafting him because I think between the intangibles, between the results in 1 year, yes. Okay, this is really hard because my heart is in both places with Dillingham and Sheppard. I'm going to stash Dillingham, and I'm going to pass on Shepard.
Wow. Well, why the disparity between those two?
Well, first off, we're playing the game, right? So I wouldn't be playing your game if I stashed both. Why the disparity between those two? I think with Dillingham, I'm going a little bit more on the upside side. Shepard has elite feel for the game, which is why this is so against my beliefs, because I like how he defends, and I like how he's a guy who just,
50% from three.
I know, and that's the league. I think it's the size. I just worry about his size in the NBA and getting driven back when he's guarding. And so does he become a liability just making the transition to the NBA on that end of the floor? But it's hard. You're asking me 3 lottery picks. I think for me, with Rob Dillingham, Kevin, the ability to get in the open floor and change the way a game is played, the ability to take over college games like he did, the way he gets into the paint, and the way that he can hit threes, whether it's coming off a screen or just a spot up jumper, like that is a guy that is such a unique playmaker, and he's a decision maker. So I'm looking at the total package of, if he can figure out the passing piece fully, Rob Dillingham is a blur. He's a blur in transition. I know that there are some defensive concerns with him. I know that there are defensive concerns, and I get the size part. And that passing piece, at times he could be a bit erratic, where the game's faster than him. So there are pros and cons with both. I don't know where you stand on it, but I'm going to, because it's lottery, because it's at that level, I'm willing to flash a bit more upside here. And as much as I love Shepard and his upside and his shot making, I just get worried about him getting pushed around. And I think I'm going to bet on a coaching staff getting Dillingham playing a little bit more under control and getting that passing piece fully ready to go for this level.
I think you could argue, and I have the same draft stash and pass as you, same selections. You could argue that Dillingham should be the draft, that he should be the number 1 pick because of that shot making ability, where he could be potentially Gen Z Allen Iverson. Rob Dillingham could be Gen Z Allen Iverson. There's a chance of that. Will he? I mean, is it a 2% chance, a 0.5% chance, a 20% chance? I don't know. But the playmaking ability is so significant. The flair that he plays with is elite. And I think with him, the improvement he experienced, I talked on Monday's podcast with Damian Wilkins, who runs Overtime Elite, and he talked about the progress that Dillingham made from OTE in high school to Kentucky. And the playmaking, decision-making feel was pretty significant. So if he falls into the right situation in the NBA, I think there's a real chance that he could end up the best player in the draft class.